Greetings, Alafia, and welcome to another episode of The Inside Voice. I am your host, Shah, and I want to thank you for vibing and aligning with me again. And I apologize because this one came a little late. This was supposed to go live last night or overnight, and sometimes the energy is not there, but the energy is definitely here tonight. I think I just needed to finish out the week. So this week's podcast episode is another double down for you, another pairing. And I want to apologize now for any outside noise you may hear. It's a beautiful night here in Florida. And nights like this, I like to just sit outside and enjoy the fresh air and the quiet. So if you hear a car go by or somebody's loud stereo, an airplane, just keep vibing with me. Remember, on this podcast we are processing, and so nothing's polished, okay? And to be honest with you, I am exhausted of performance accountability and appearing polished, as it were. So this first half of our double down for this lunar cycle is called the price of peace. And in my last episode, I talked about when calm isn't peace, right? And some of the things that we will mistake as patience or peacefulness in a person, when in actuality it's just tolerance and enduring uncomfortable situations for an entirely too long of a time. So now I want to explore and process the fact, because it is a fact, that peace will cost you something. Because peace is something a lot of us say we want. Some of us will even say that we're at peace or we have inner peace, and really we don't. And we need to understand that peace is not something that just happens. It's something that we pursue and cultivate internally first, which has no choice but to lend itself to the external. When we say peace, a lot of the time we imagine it as calm, ease, softness, quiet mornings, deep breaths, maybe a life that finally feels settled. But what I've learned is that peace doesn't come the way we think it does, because peace is not passive. Peace is something that you have to choose. And more often than not, it's something that you have to protect. We hear people say all the time, I'm going to protect my peace. I have to protect my peace. Okay. We know it. We say it. It's become very cliche, but do we actually do that? So let's get into it. All right. And this one, I'm hoping my battery lasts long enough for me to get through it. If it doesn't, well, I'll just have to pick up where I left off. But there's a lot of different parts to this. And so for the first time, I'm going to talk about a topic in segments. So When I hit a segment, make a note of that timestamp if you feel like you want to or may need to go back and visit it. Okay? So, the price of peace, segment 1. And I already said it, peace isn't passive. It's often expressed and even marketed as something gentle, something you just kind of fall into, something that just happens when life calms down. But real peace is active. It requires decision making, setting boundaries, which is going to be another podcast topic coming right around the bend. I don't know, this might be a triplicate. We'll see. Standing on those boundaries, ending something, having hard conversations, telling truths that you're avoiding, acknowledging truths, because you have to acknowledge them before you can even talk about them. And peace actually demands that we disrupt things by way of changing patterns or choosing to stop participating in things that drain us. And that's not soft. That is intentional and often uncomfortable. So let's write this down. Number 1, peace is not something you stumble into. It's something you defend. Something you fight for. Segment 2. What peace actually costs you. It's going to cost you something. Anybody who's had to start life all over again, put an end to something in an attempt to establish and have peace or find peace in their lives knows this. It's actually going to cost you something. And this is the part people don't talk about enough. Peace costs you things. It might cost you the people that you love, but are no longer aligned with. It might cost you the roles and responsibilities you've carried for years. The fixer, the patient one, the peacemaker. And I'm going to also add that I've been reading The Let Them Theory by Mel Robbins, and this melds right into this, because in that book she talks about how the let them theory isn't about just letting them. There's another whole other side of it, okay? Because when you let them, on the flip side, mentally, emotionally, behavior-wise, you also have to say, let me. And what does that mean when you're looking for peace? Okay? So let me put down this role as fixer. Let me put down this role as the patient one. Let me stop being the peacemaker. Peace is going to cost you the version of yourself that was easier or more comfortable for other people. The version of yourself that made you easy access. The version of you that did not have any boundaries and said and did, agreed with and participated in things that you didn't really enjoy or want to do, but you did it anyway. So the hard truth is this. Some of the things peace costs you were things that you were proud to carry, and you're going to have to put it down. All right? Point number 3. You can't keep everything and be at peace. There comes a point where you have to be honest with yourself. And not just one time, repeatedly. You can't keep everything and still expect to feel at peace. You can't keep the relationship if it requires you to be silent. You can't keep your old coping mechanisms and expect new outcomes. Okay, a lot of us have heard the saying that insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. You can't keep choosing comfort over truth, because is it really comfortable? Maybe it's comfortable in the moment. Maybe it's a quick fix. Maybe it's tied to some kind of instant gratification, but long term, is it really comfortable? I think not. Not if we're looking for peace, or we're like starving for peace on the inside. So peace requires you to put some things down. Peace requires you to release the things that are not serving your peace. And not simply letting go of what hurts, but also letting go of things that are familiar. Things that just don't work for you anymore. Things that are not aligned with who you are or who you're trying to become. So I want to ask you this. You might want to write this down and just sit with it, okay? Ask yourself, what am I trying to hold on to that my peace is asking me to release? You already know what it is. For myself, I already know what it is, what it was. But if you are serious about claiming your peace, you got to have room for it. You got to have space for it, which means you have to put some things down, put some things away. Okay? Get rid of them. It's time to clean up house. All right? Point number 4. What it's taking for me to sleep at night. There was a point when I realized, and that point was about 3 years ago, June 2023, when I decided to go into therapy. So there was this point where I realized that I was carrying too much mentally and emotionally. And even though things looked good, blessed, balanced, however it's being perceived on the outside, I was not at peace. I was completely disrupted. I remember my second therapy session. I shared something with my therapist, something that I had convinced myself I was just being difficult, nitpicky. I just wasn't appreciative of the life that I had. I had basically villainized myself for years. And I shared and showed something to my therapist that he was able to just completely pick apart and completely validate my feelings. Not the feelings where I was villainizing myself, but the feelings that were triggering me to feel, ill at ease all the time. The things that were in fact disrupting my peace and that I was participating in. It was only my second therapy session. And after that session, because I was validated and all the villainous things that I had said about myself were actually proven untrue, I cried in my car for about a whole hour after that therapy session. You want to talk about milestone moments? Anybody who knows me personally knows I don't cry easily. I'm not a crier. I feel things very deeply, but it's only certain things and certain situations that actually get me to cry. And when I tell you, I cried and cried and cried and cried and cried. Because up until that moment, my mind was so loud. I was overthinking everything, replaying conversations and situations, holding tension and resentment I couldn't even name anymore. Everything just kind of melded together. And in that moment, after I stopped crying at least, I had a decision to make. And it wasn't a comfortable one. It wasn't a familiar one, but it was an honest one. And with that honesty came a sense of relief. And since then, I've chosen peace. And things have gotten a lot quieter, but not immediately easier, because one, there's still work to do. And two, because peace can feel lonely before it feels liberating. Okay? Point number 5, having the audacity to choose peace. Oh man, the people who are not going to understand, the people who are not going to appreciate not having access to you, the situations that may just fall apart because you're choosing to not participate or not play those roles. It can get messy. So you have to understand that choosing peace will not always be understood. It will confuse people. It will offend people, especially people who have benefited from your lack of peace. Okay? You might be called distant, different, selfish, difficult. Here's my favorite. Being called a poor communicator because you choose not to engage in conversation and back and forth and any type of exchanges where said people choose to not understand or choose to be lost or simply have refused to be accountable or are dismissive about how they show up and the effect that it may have had on you all this time. Okay, be careful with that communicator one, because depending on who you are and what your quirks and your triggers are, you might fall for that one. And I urge you to pay close attention to the other people in your circle, your green people, your safe people that you still confide in, that you're still close to, that still have access to you, if you've established those kinds of relationships yet. And if they're not having an issue with your communication, what the other person really is trying to tell you is that they're bothered, upset, or hurt even by the fact that you're not communicating with them and that you're not giving them access anymore. And you know what? That's fair. Two things can be true at the same time. Okay. Choosing peace will sometimes make you the villain in somebody else's story. So when you choose peace, what's really happening is you're choosing yourself in a way that you didn't before. And that takes a lot of guts. And it's something that you're going to need time to get used to, and other people may or may not get used to or even accept. So write this down. Write it on your mirror if you need to. It takes audacity to choose yourself when people are used to you choosing them. So again, the audacity of you to choose peace. Be prepared to take that with whatever comes with it. Okay? Point number 6. Peace versus familiar chaos. Sometimes we don't choose peace. Not because we don't want to, but because we're used to something else. It's that familiar chaos. And the patterns that we know. The dynamics we've learned to navigate, especially dynamics from childhood. Okay, a lot of people don't like to hear this or admit it, but it's in our relationships, especially our romantic relationships, we will recreate a lot of the same dynamics, um, emotional triggers, mental stressors, environmental imbalances that we experienced in childhood. And then we will wonder why we don't have peace. Oh, but we were so in love, and it was this, and it was that way, and it used to be this way. But while love is wonderful, beautiful, magical thing, it's not just a feeling, it's also a verb. And so when we choose peace for ourselves, that is like the highest act of love we can show ourselves. And from there, we can actually show those who are willing how it is we prefer to be loved, if they don't already know. And then decide if, say, they can't, whether or not we're going to continue to participate. Emotional environments we've adapted to, even when they're draining, familiar chaos. And we do this because our nervous system will choose what's familiar over what's healthy. I'm going to say that again because a lot of people are in denial about this. As human beings, we are hardwired to be habitual. Our brains crave familiarity above all else. So we will choose what's familiar over what's healthy. And at first, peace can feel very unfamiliar. It can even feel unsafe. And if you've been following my podcast series, we've touched on a lot of this already. And we have to take those deep dives and ask ourselves hard questions. When we see and are experiencing something that we know is inherently good, we know it's inherently healthier, it's better. You know, there's a part of us that internally is responding differently in a good way, and yet somehow we might become fearful of it. We might sabotage it. We might start saying and doing things that send us back to our familiar chaos. Because things that are unfamiliar for a little while, even if they're good, are going to feel unsafe. Just because it's different. If you've never experienced peace and you start experiencing it, it's going to feel different. And that difference is going to feel unsafe. But I urge you to work through it. Work through it. Point 7. What peace requires moving forward. So in case you haven't realized it yet, peace is not a one-time decision. It's something you have to choose repeatedly. It requires consistency. You need to set and stand on boundaries. You have to have awareness that turns into action, because being aware is not enough. It's never enough. Being aware is the start point for everything. And then we have to take action. There's no way around it. It requires a willingness to let your life reflect what you say you want. Some of us talk a lot of shit, okay? I know I've talked shit. Still talk shit sometimes. I got a lot of people in my life that talk shit. It's a whole lot of shit talking. But as my grandma used to say, you need to shit or get off the pot. Okay? So we have to start moving in ways where we can see the glimmers and the small progressions and celebrate the wins of the life that we say we want. And not just in fleeting moments, although they will be like that at first, because we are building a peaceful life. We are cultivating peace in our lives. So those fleeting moments will become less fleeting, more stable, more consistent, because we will be functioning in a new set of patterns. Patterns that encourage our peace. So I want to point out the fact that though peace will always cost you something, it isn't that expensive. It doesn't cost you as much as you think it's going to cost you. It's going to cost you something. Some reflection, some work, some letting go, some honesty, radical honesty, awareness, some action. But it's not pricey. What's pricey and what's expensive is staying in situations where you are misaligned. So, if you don't take anything else from this episode, take this. Peace will ask something of you. It will ask you to be honest. It will ask you to be consistent, to release what no longer aligns or serves you, even when it's hard. But on the other side of that, there's a version of you that actually feels lighter, has more clarity, and is more grounded within yourself. Because that version of you that radiates is rooted in what you will no longer tolerate. Whew, yes. So with that being said, stand by for part 2. And make sure you are working on your journal prompts. All right? So before I head out, let me give you those questions. Oh, you thought you were going to get out of the questions? Never, never, never. So here are your reflection prompts for this post. Okay? We got about 10 questions here. You choose whichever one resonates with you and go from there. Question 1. What am I holding on to that my peace is asking me to release? Question 2. What people, places, or situations can drain me, but I've justified keeping them? Question 3. What roles do I play that cost me my peace? Question 4. Where have I chosen comfort over truth? Question 5. What boundaries do I need to strengthen or create? Question 6. What old patterns or coping mechanisms am I ready to let go of? Question 7. What would my life look like if peace was my top priority? Question 8. What does real peace feel like in my body, mind, and spirit? Question 9. What does it cost me when I ignore my peace? And question 10. What is one decision I can make today to protect my peace? So we'll just breathe on that for a minute and take your time with this one. You might not be ready to do the work, but if you're recognizing that you don't have the peace you want in your life, just know that there is work to be done. And until then, I'm your host, Shah. This is Inside Voice. Stay rooted so you can radiate.